Hello and welcome to VistaTalks, interesting discussions with interesting people from all around the world. I am your host for today, María Roa, and I am happy to introduce you to Iti Sahai. Iti is a global business and technology leader with more than 15 years of experience driving international growth across 20 plus markets. She specialized in product-led internationalization, building a scalable global infrastructure, and embedding AI-powered innovation into enterprise product ecosystems. Her career spans the entertainment industry, Hollywood and Bollywood, international product management, and leadership roles in companies like Chegg, Procore, and more recently as head of product internationalization global infrastructure at Klaviyo. She is also a recognized speaker at events such as World and the Product-Led Summit, where she champions localization as a strategic narrative-driven function that accelerates global expansion. This blend of storytelling, technology, and cultural intelligence makes her one of the most compelling voices in the global product and localization space today. I am delighted to welcome her to VistaTalks and also to call her a friend. Welcome, Iti.
Thank you. Thank you, Maria. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for being here. And I mentioned before that your career spans Bollywood and Hollywood and now global product leadership. I bet our audience wants to know, how was your storytelling background shaped? I mean, how does your storytelling background shape the way you approach internationalization and product strategy?
Thank you for that question. So I believe, as a storyteller at heart, I am a creative person, and storytelling is a big part of product management as well. Nowadays, when you have to present to leadership, you have to present to your stakeholders, that narrative, that storytelling is a big aspect of it. And that's now become more mainstream as a theme and a topic, but it has been sort of the undercurrent to my career. And most importantly, I believe, as a storyteller at heart, now I get to tell stories of technology, of products through different languages to cultures and customers all around the world. So it certainly is an important aspect of my work and how it's shaped up my career so far.
That's really interesting. You know that I follow you and everything you present and everywhere you talked. And I know you often talk about transforming localization into a strategic function. What are the biggest misconceptions companies still have about localization, and how do you help shift that mindset?
Yeah, I believe that one of the biggest misconceptions, especially when a company is starting out their expansion journey, their global journey, is to consider localization still aligned more so in operations and more of a cost center. So I often see within the first, 2 to 3 years of growth, they're looking at costs when they've actively started investing in this. And sometimes, organizations have very distributed processes, very fragmented approach and siloed approach across the business units. But when they start to look at it and really see the value in it, they are still addressing it as a cost center. So what I mean by that is they're looking at, okay, this is our X dollars worth of spend. How can we reduce it down by 25%, 30%, 90% in some cases? And they're then looking at work counts, and their KPIs are more around turnaround times, and SLAs are established based on those frameworks. But I truly feel if you have to look at localization from a different lens or make it so that it is more authentic to your brand or your products infrastructure as a core level, you need to think of it more from a growth perspective, because there is only so much cost reduction one can do, right? You can bring your costs, whatever they are, down to zero. But when it comes to growth, that number is immeasurable, right? It can be anything that you put value towards and also make those strategic investment towards. So, when you think of growth, it can be literally anything. But you need to make those strategic investments. So for instance, for example, if as a company, as a brand, you are looking at your customers, the customer journey, and really understanding what they need based on the markets you're getting active traction in or organic growth from. But they don't really need translations. That's not what the customer requires based on your product and what it offers and what problems that product solves for your customers. They actually need a checkout method or currency presentment, that is in their local language to build that trust and to really get through the checkout system and, to purchase a product. Then you need to make those investments there. That's part of a larger localization ecosystem. But at times language experience, language parity across all the enterprise workflows can solve for it, but it again needs to be positioned more as a growth lever and what you attribute value from the business lens.
That's really interesting. How do you think they can do that? How do you think they can change from being cost to being growth? How they can show the company and the C executives that they should be changed from one to the other?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And I think that ties very nicely back to our ROI of localization, right? When you think of ROI, most of the metrics that get thrown around quite a bit or we're familiar with would be the cost per word, the turnaround times, how you measure quality and metrics of that nature. But then again, that is still attributed towards cost and cost reduction and how much money we're actually spending. But if you look at growth, the shift in perspective would be you're looking at the customer acquisition cost, like you're looking at the CAC, you're looking at the lifetime value that the customer is providing, you're looking at in the customer, experience journey end to end, where is that drop off rate? Where is the attrition? Where are they really falling off the funnel? And how can we optimize that? Because those metrics will give you very specific data points that can be leveraged to create the language experience, to create that localized experience beyond language as well, to create value for the customer and make that more positioned as a growth lever as opposed to a cost center.
That sounds great. Well, that's a great tip for our audience. Thank you so much. I know also at the Product-Led Summit, you were speaking about a strategic storytelling as a leadership tool. How can product and localization teams use narrative to influence without formal authority?
Yes. So that is again tying back to, my background and experience in storytelling. And if you know stories, if you know movies, there is always a hero in the journey, right? And it's always about a hero and the hero's journey, how they overcame a challenge and then met their goal, summited, however. And in the hero's journey, there are multiple people that are along with the hero in that journey to make it successful for them. And I feel when you are you're a product leader, you're a localization leader, we often tend to, and I've been in conversations with peers and, folks from the industry who make it about them, that it is important to me. That's why it should be important to my C-suite or my leadership, right? That this is, the word count and the cost per word, this is the time it's going to take. I respect that. I appreciate that. And I see you, right? For folks that those metrics matter, I see you. I recognize that. But at the same time, for a C-suite leader or executive leadership, those metrics really mean little to very less, right? So instead of making it about our workflows and what we do, our work, we're passionate about it. I get it, and it's something that we we want to do our best towards. But at the end of the day, our work ties to driving the business forward and the business's goals forward. So one of the key giveaways or takeaways, I would say, is to make the story about your stakeholder. Make it about them. Make them the hero of your story instead of making it about you. And what I mean by that is make it about the metrics that matter to them. What will move the needle for them and achieve their goals, whether it's the business or a specific business unit or a team, some stakeholders, whatever it is that will make them successful. Try to align your localization workflows or your own strategy around that to come to a shared outcome.
That's also a great tip. Thank you so much, Iti. I think we are learning a lot with you today. You let's change it a bit because you build also global infrastructures that support AI-powered product workflows. Um, where do you see the most meaningful opportunities and risk when integrating AI into internationalization? Because as you know, everyone is talking about AI right now, and people don't know really where to put AI in place.
Yeah. I believe that has been a very hot topic in the industry, for a couple of years now. And now a lot of more mature localization programs are successful in implementing it. Most recently, I was listening to the CPO of Walmart International, and he mentioned that integrating AI into the workflows in their localization workflows, they were able to reduce the cost by 90%. So 90 to 99%. Yeah, it was insane. And I was just kind of
That's
amazed by
crazy.
by the numbers that they shared. But it's understandably that, they have a very mature and a very, at scale program that they're running, and they have the flexibility to implement such efficiencies that can drive to those outcomes. But for the others who are in different parts of their localization journey or their international expansion journey, my one observation is from the industry in general that localization tends to sit within either marketing ops or some sort of an operations cadence. And then more recently in the past few years, because it's been like, oh, let's productize localization, so there is localization sitting within product operations, but then again it is still an operations function. It may have adjacency to product and engineering and all of that, but we're still thinking from a very operations lens. But to truly be able to get the value long term from AI, I believe two things are a must. One is to think of AI not as like a band-aid or a quick patch or a fix to be more relevant, right? And to be at par with the trend in the industry. It's going to take some long-term thinking and long-term approach in terms of how we're building these hybrid models that include that human in the loop. I don't think that's going to go away or be eliminated because language is evolving every day, and with different brands and voices. It is important to have that human visibility into it. So it'll take us some time till we completely, have a touchless workflow. Perhaps it is still possible in certain, kinds of content, etc. So that hybrid approach and long-term scalability needs to be one of the focus areas. The other one I would say that for AI implementation to truly be successful, product need or localization needs to start positioning themselves beyond just product operations, more as a growth lever, more as a strategic driver for growth and expansion. Because what it'll do is it'll give us resourcing when it comes to engineering resourcing and true product mindset, which is focused more on identifying customer problems and then building solutions around them. So that sort of cohesive approach needs to be there in order for us to think of AI integration into any of our natively into any of the workflows. Otherwise, there are multiple AI tools. You can just slap that on into your existing localization stack and call it a day. But if you truly want to be AI native and think of that, I believe having a hybrid approach for long-term scalability and sustenance is one, and the other is to have a more centralized product-led approach for localization as well.
That was great. I was taking notes of everything you said, and you mentioned a hybrid approach with human in the loop, AI as an strategic lever, and centralized approach. Is that right?
Yeah.
That sounds great. Um, I think I also mentioned in your introduction that you work across more than 20 markets. What patterns have you observed about what truly drives international product adoption and what companies often get wrong?
Yeah, I believe, one of the important questions to ask is in terms of our, similarities, and that messaging that goes beyond just translations across different regions that, I've scaled businesses into. one of the most important aspect of, being a product leader, being a localization leader is to truly listen to customers. That I believe, is not valued enough in our work. A lot of the time, localization teams really don't go out and talk to customers. There's not that direct feedback loop, if you would. It's always secondhand feedback. But I encourage my teams and, myself included, at least try to meet customers 3 times a week, if not more. And that is across different industries, different scale, size of companies. If it's a B2B product or if it's direct to customers, I try to meet customers, consumers as well of the product to get an understanding from them as to what their pain points are, what is causing them friction in using the product, whether they're existing customers or not, or whether they're prospects or considering the product. If they were old customers, why did they stop using the product? So it's challenging at times to get those calls scheduled, but once you are in the movement and you're getting your feelers out and getting those calls scheduled, it's building that relationship and trust with the customers to truly get them to start opening up and sharing the insights, because that's where the true gold is. Once I've heard customers, and at times they'll try to approach the conversation from a solutions perspective, right? They'll say, hey, why don't you build this and why don't you build that? And I appreciate it. But at the same time, the core value lies not in solutioning. We don't need to over engineer something. If it's a simple fix can be enough, but it's understanding the problem behind it. So I like to joke with my teams and say that, we sit and marinate in the problem to truly get a good grasp of what's causing that friction or the, pain for the customers, understand their problems. And that's product management 101. To then come up with a solution. Because, if we approach it from a solutioning perspective, we might be missing out on the bigger picture of the problem or what could arise later on in their experience or just sort of using the products. And that is something which I feel is consistent across the board, across different markets, is to have that ability to listen, because customers are open to sharing. Some regions, they're more vocal than the others and more, forthcoming than others. But eventually, they all want to use the product. They want, if they, it's a good product, they want to use it, and they want to share and be a part of, the overall process of making the localization translations better, which ties into the power of community as well. That at times, if you can't get hold of direct customers or end users, there's value in reaching out to your local product cohorts, or there is sort of a community-driven meetup or something in different cities or different countries. That is a great resource as well. So I would really encourage, localization leaders and product leaders in the space to be more active when it comes to gathering direct customer feedback. And that is one theme that remains consistent across the board, despite the languages that are required, or the product fit nuance that's required for the regions, is to constantly be listening.
Is there any market that you think it is harder to gather that feedback from? Like any country that you think these people is really hard to get feedback from them? Or because at events, sometimes depending on which country I go to, I feel like it's harder to get people to come to the booth to talk to us. Like, does this the same thing happens when gathering feedback from clients, or it's not? It doesn't matter.
Good question. And it's more around the fact that it's at times it's the product. Like, if it's a consumer product, what age group is that, the ideal customer profile? If it's a older customer profile, sometimes they're more hesitant than younger customers. So, and if it's a B2B, then some segments might be more open to speaking to you as opposed to the others. So it just totally depends. I think it's not region dependent. It is more dependent on just the customers and what the product is. But I encourage leaders to just go out there and, get somebody to talk to you and create a space where they can openly share and, not have too many leading pointed questions, but just open-ended questions. So you get them talking, and once they start talking, they'll be more willing to share than anything else.
Okay, you see, at events, it does depend on the market because I think it depends on the way that we people are raised and the way we share, we are used to sharing with other people that we don't know. So if they are more open, like if they're more used to talking to people that they don't know, whatever, it's how they handle being at open events.
Yeah.
So it does depend on the market. It's funny, more or less how many people you will be seeing at events depending on the markets. Anyways, sorry, that was completely out. I just was wondering if it was the same thing with products and services. And we're going to have to finish, but before we do, I know that you've been deeply involved with in community leadership through Women in Localization. How has community work influenced your perspective on leadership, mentorship, and industry transformation?
I believe there is great power in community. Some of my best work, whether professionally or personally, I would say, has come from just being embedded and being a part of a, bigger community and cohort. And for me personally, I believe there is a lot of joy in the service, and giving back to the community. And that's what allows me to be learning always and be growing and stretching in spaces and in ways that I haven't experienced before. Um, and with just being part of community driven organizations, I've learned so much about different countries and the cultural nuance and also the leadership styles. When you are a growth and an expansion leader, you have to work with regions just all over the world, and it has given me that great insight and also affected my work in a very positive way from that sense. So I'm really grateful for it, and I encourage everyone who wants to learn and wants to serve to be a part of their communities, and be actively participating in some way or the other.
Well, Iti, thank you very much for being involved with Women in Localization. The work you do is great. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our audience before we finish?
One, just a quick recap of what I've shared, but it constantly comes to mind that we are in a way storytellers. We are telling the story through language to different cultures across the world and through products and content. So let's keep that sort of creativity, that creative aspect of our work alive, despite all the technology that's coming through, that is here to stay. It's not going away. You need to have something to anchor in your creativity and your passion. And we're very passionate people in what we do. So, I would encourage everyone to think, when you are in conversations with stakeholders and boardroom executives, to try to make them the hero of the story and think from their perspective as to what matters to them. Now more than ever, businesses are being extra careful in terms of their investments, but more encouraged by any of the growth conversations. So try to make them the hero of the story and think of it from that lens. And at the same time, I would say that, in a world today that's moving so fast with the, changes in technology and with AI being, top of mind and top of every conversation, localization is beyond just translations. It is more about the messaging, but it's most importantly keeping the humanity alive in our conversations. So that's not going to go away. As humans, that's going to stay.
Yeah, and after everything you said today, I think we can also add that localization isn't a step in the process. It's the heartbeat of a global operation, and we need to treat it that way. Thank you very much, Iti. I think we can say that this is the end of today's show with Iti Sahai. Please make sure to tune in again to see and or to listen to the next VistaTalks show, where we will be discussing more interesting topics with interesting people from all around the world. Thank you so much, Iti.